Hey, I'm Amanda. I've got 4 primary age children. I live in the UK. I've been home educating them for the last 12 months. Today I just want to share with you a few of the ways that we got through our first winter homeschooling. Where we live in the UK, we're down in the south of England, but still it gets dark around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the sun doesn't come up quite so early either. So I knew that if we were going to really enjoy this, we had to make some changes. And that's one of the great things about homeschooling, is that you've got complete freedom to structure your day and even what you're going to learn around the seasons that you're in. And that's what we did with winter. So the first thing I did was recognize the fact that it's harder to get up in the morning and get going when you don't have natural light. So when I'd wake my kids up at 7:30 in the morning, it was dark outside, we had to turn the electric light on, and it was a good hour before the sunlight would come through, and some days it's just cloudy all day. A lot of cloud, a lot of rain in the UK, and that meant you could go ages with just not much natural light, and it just meant over time that getting up and getting going is a bit more kind of lethargic, a bit slower. So we just slowed things down a bit. We cooked breakfast, we made breakfast more of a slow, enjoyable time rather than a rush to get through. I began to add more books into our morning breakfast time, so we do a lot of reading over breakfast and discussing and talking, and we just made that a really valuable relational time in the day. The other thing I did, and this is probably the most important, was check the weather forecast every morning and plan the day around the sunshine. So if it looked like there was going to be a window of an hour or 2 hours of sunshine and no rain, then we would put our books down, close our laptops, and we would go outside. And where we live, we're super lucky. We've got so many woodlands and forests, really only 5 minutes away from where we live. So every single day, if there was sunshine, we would go outside and we would go into the forest. And as long as we had our hats on and our wellies and our coats, we could be out there for an hour, hour and a half. Sometimes I would take a flask, sometimes we'd meet up with friends and do the same thing, and we'd all bring a snack. And we would just soak up the sunshine while it was there. And that's one of the wonderful things about home educating, is the freedom to do that. We don't have to stick to a timetable and all be inside at the same time and then all have a break at the same time. We can look at the day and go, the best time for us to go outside is going to be 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock. And so we had a list of things that we had to do every day in terms of our learning, but we were flexible about when we did that. So we made sure that time in nature every single day, for fresh air, for exercise, and just being outside, being among the trees. And I was really deliberate about getting the kids to notice what the landscape was like in the forest. We noticed that after the storms, all the dead wood would come down. They would love to climb on it. We noticed that the streams were overflowing. You know, if there'd been rain the night before, they were really big. The streams were heavy and flowing. We even noticed just the different species of plants, which ones were evergreen, which ones had lost their leaves. We did some art in the forest. We just made that time really precious part of our day. And I found that the children were quite happy to re-engage with kind of focused learning late in the afternoon when the sun came down, 4 o'clock. If they'd had a few hours break in the middle of the day, they were quite fresh and ready to do some more work at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock when it was dark. And so that was actually quite enjoyable for us. I also tried to plan having a hot cooked meal in the middle of the day, wherever possible. We made a lot of fresh homemade soup every day. I used my bread maker to make fresh bread every day. And just having a warm, hot, fresh lunch in the middle of the day kept us going for when it was cold. And again, we would read over lunch. We got through a lot of books over that time, just talking, reading while we were eating. And even though it was winter and we had to put our caravan away for the winter, we still did quite a lot of school trips or our days out. So again, I would look at the weather forecast at the beginning of the week, and if there was one day where it was going to be really sunny, I would try and make the most of that whole day. We went to lots of different National Trust properties that we had never visited before. We did a number of actual learning days out, whole days out, over that January, February time, more than I thought we might have been able to do. And it just kept things varied, it kept it interesting. and we actually had a really good time. And I also built in a few extra things into their routine in January while I knew we would be inside a bit more. So we added in some Latin, started some Shakespeare, a few other things I just kind of brought in whilst we were over that winter time when I knew we would spend more time inside. We also had some great afternoons of just art that went on for hours, because when it's dark outside at 4 o'clock and it's raining, there's not a lot else to do, is there? But we did one art day, and I just kind of started this process, and I thought that they might get into it for maybe an hour, half an hour, but they did 3 hours. They were so engrossed in the art that they were making and creating, and I just love that we had the whole afternoon to do that. They didn't come home tired because they hadn't been out. So that's just some of the ways that we actually really enjoyed winter. I think it's so important if you're homeschooling to adapt what you're doing to the season that you are in. Every season presents us with opportunities. Every season has its beauty, and it's so important just to be flexible and make the most of every season that we're in. If you're interested, you can follow me on Instagram, Homeschool Hack, and put in the comments anything that you found helpful for your winter. We're now in spring, so if you're in spring and you're in the UK or anywhere else and you've got any tips on making the most of spring, then share those below and let me know. Thanks, bye!